Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sitdown, where we sit down to discuss the industry's hottest topics to date. As always, I'm your host, Mike Franz, and on today's show, we have not one, but two guests. We have, welcoming back, Naren Muthiah, Tesco Director of Market and Product Strategy, and a new guest, Jeyler Zabala, Tesco Solution Architect. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
Jeyler, you are a new guest on the show. Are you excited?
Excited and glad to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right into it. Today we are discussing CBRS. Naren, the first question is for you. If you don't mind, just discuss and give us a broad definition of what CBRS is.
Sure. So CBRS really is a spectrum. I know could be some confusion over what CBRS is. Is it a technology? Is it a spectrum? What it is it's a spectrum called Citizens Band Radio Spectrum. It's about 150 megahertz of spectrum that was opened up by the FCC, from 3550 to 3700 megahertz. But the real interesting concept here is this is the first time ever this whole concept of shared spectrum has been introduced. And the reason for that is traditionally, in order to deploy a wireless network, you would either need licensed spectrum or unlicensed spectrum. And the challenge with that is, with the licensed spectrum, it becomes too expensive to access, and then the unlicensed gets too crowded. So it really doesn't serve a whole suite of wireless connectivity needs. Now, with this advent of shared spectrum, it really makes spectrum accessible to pretty much any stakeholder, and as well as because it really enables spectrum reuse. So this is a great concept right in the early stages of it. You're going to start seeing different stakeholders trying to adopt and use CBRS, in addition to existing wireless technologies such as Wi-Fi and other connectivity technologies today to enable their wireless ecosystem. So looking forward to what the next 12 to 18 months really play out. There's going to be a lot of activity in the CBRS space. The one thing that I do want to add here is, so you might be wondering, so how does shared spectrum work? So you have a governing body called the Spectrum Access System that, think of that as a traffic cop, or that really you have this demand and supply here. So the demand from the end customer is saying I need to use a spectrum, and the supply in making that spectrum available. So that's what the governing body does. So they, in real time, look at the different users that are requesting for access to spectrum and make actual spectrum available to each of those users in real time. And this works in a tiered model. And the top of the tier is the incumbent, which is the Navy. And then the middle of the band is called Priority Access Line, which is about 70 megahertz of spectrum, which is going to be auctioned off later this year. And then the bottom piece of that band is the general access, which is about 80 megahertz. That's really available for anyone that wants to deploy a CBRS network. So that's, in a sense, how the tiered model works. And there's a governing body that manages all of it. And all this happens real time, and it's going to be seamless to the end user.
Okay. Let me ask you a follow-up question there real quick. What are you seeing in the market as far as CBRS early adopters is concerned?
Sure. So there's a lot of different pilots that have been happening over the course of the last 12 months, and a couple of areas that we've seen a bit of activity is private networks, primarily in the large venue, entertainment, as well as hospitality space, as well as some industrial settings such as utilities and oil and gas that want to have a private network. And a private network is really something that's owned and operated by the enterprise. In some instances, you could have a managed service provider providing that management layer, but the enterprise technically owns that network and the data. The other area that we've seen some activity is in the wireless internet service provider space, where a lot of existing service providers are utilizing CBRS to augment, existing, wireless coverage to a lot of rural areas where wireless coverage is underserved.
Very cool. All right, Jeyler, I'm going to switch it over to you. You are on the CISA team here at Tesco, and for those of you who don't know, CISA stands for Sales, Engineer, and Solution Architects. I do not want to have to say that 5 times fast. But if you don't mind, please share your expertise, experience, and how CBRS really fits into your role here at Tesco.
Well, we have a team of experts, a design team and solutions architects that can provide you with design, propagation analysis, and even suggest equipment based on your network design needs. We are very well versed on IB wave, RF propagation, so we can provide you with indoor and outdoor analysis, as well as deployments and design for whatever your needs are for in-building and outdoor coverage for wireless networks. To piggyback into what Naren was saying, it's very important to know that these SAS are going to work geographically. So several channels are going to be awarded throughout the country because it's going to be geographically limited. So the same company could own the same channels or different channels based on their locality of their deployment. So that's very important to keep in mind. And it goes tied into what he was saying, that you're going to be able to have people that normally are not in the space be able to come up with a couple of channels, 3, 4 channels, and deploying their own LTE-like network, private network, to have wireless where there usually was not any other option.
Something I hear around Tesco, it's 3 big things. It seems to be CBRS, DAS, and Wi-Fi. Now for you, Jeyler, how do you see those 3 things working together or being complementary of one another?
In my opinion, they're going to complement each other. CBRS is going to come in as another tool in the toolbox for any network designer, wireless network designer, because Wi-Fi, CBRS, and in-building DAS, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And basically what CBRS is going to be able to do is going to complement a lot more Wi-Fi than in-building DAS because of the way it's deployed, because of the security, the handoff, which are better on CBRS than Wi-Fi. So all of that is going to give you another tool to be able to come up with solutions in areas where a wireless network is going to be needed to be deployed.
Okay. Naren, going back to you, are there any predictions that you see on what type of companies will be purchasing the PAL licenses and how that will really impact the market?
Sure. I mean, at this point, I don't think we can be certain, but if I were to take some educated guesses, potentially any mobile network operator that does not have currently access to midband would be a sure candidate to go after the PAL license. As with 5G coming down the horizon, you're going to need midband spectrum to deploy a lot of different services on that. And potentially larger enterprises or industrial entities that are going to, that have a security need will probably want to have, their own spectrum. So those would be a couple of the guesses that I would take.
And then any last thoughts from either one of you regarding CBRS and Tesco's role with it?
Well, keep in mind that we have the software, the products, the team CSI is here to help you with design, selecting the right products, optimizing your deployment, commissioning your deployment to make sure that you can go ahead and apply for your license and go through the process. We have CPI installers, certified installers in-house, so we know what the process looks like, and we can guide you through the whole design and commissioning process for a CBRS network.
Just to piggyback with Jeyler, we've been paying attention to CBRS and following this for some time now, and we're the only distributor that's actually a member of the CBRS Alliance, and the reason for that investment in doing that is really being part of that ecosystem that brought this together, and working with our OEM partners as well as our reseller and integrator partners to not only navigate this because of the unknown nature of it, but also really work with them to be able to deploy a full turnkey CBRS solution for our customers.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you both for joining me today. Those are all the questions that I have. Did you guys have fun being on the show?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Will you guys come back for another one?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, this has been The Sit Down.